I was 17 when I realized I meant absolutely nothing to my parents. It started with a cough. Nothing wild, just a dry, persistent itch in my chest. I figured it was seasonal, maybe some kind of allergy. But by the third week, I was coughing up blood. That's when I knew something was wrong. My name's Liam. I'm the oldest of two, and apparently, also the most disposable. My brother Ethan, the golden child, had just been accepted into a prestigious Ivy League school. My parents were obsessed with making sure he had the perfect start: new laptop, car, dorm furniture, private tutors, even luxury linens. No expense was spared. Meanwhile, I was losing weight, couldn't keep food down, and had nights where I'd wake up in cold sweats gasping for air. We didn't have health insurance. My dad's a small business owner, my mom manages the books, and they said it wasn't cost-effective to get a family plan. But we had savings, at least I thought we did. When I finally collapsed at school, they took me to the ER. That night, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. Curable, treatable, but not cheap. Chemo, blood tests, scans, a port catheter. My aunt, who's a nurse, laid it all out gently. She even spoke to my parents for me, explaining the urgency. But when I woke up the next morning and looked into my parents' faces, I already knew what they'd decided. We just can't, my mom whispered, not meeting my eyes. We have to think about the future, Dad said. Your brother worked so hard. He's got a full ride, but it doesn't cover everything. And we still have the business to think about. They'd rather pay for Ethan's textbooks than keep me alive. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just shut down. My aunt, bless her soul, drained her savings and got me into a clinical trial 2 states over. She drove me every week for infusions, stayed up with me through the fevers and vomiting, made smoothies when I couldn't eat. When I lost my hair, she shaved her head with me. I made it through the worst of it, but I never told my parents how close I'd come to dying. I pretended to understand. I even smiled and said I was just grateful for my second chance. But deep inside, I was planning. Not revenge. Something better. I was going to make it so that one day, they'd need me. And I'd be the one who chose whether they deserved saving. When I returned home after finishing my treatment, my parents greeted me with this awkward, cautious warmth. The kind people give to a neighbor's pet. Friendly, but not too close. Glad you're feeling better, Dad said, handing me a microwave plate of food. Mom just said, you look tired, and went back to emailing Ethan's college advisor. Ethan barely noticed I was back. He was already prepping to leave for school with a shiny new MacBook and a stack of letters from prestigious alumni mentors. They were throwing everything into his future like it was some sacred investment. Meanwhile, I was treated like a glitch in their system, an error they'd like to forget. So I pretended. I smiled, nodded, said all the right things. Thanks for dinner. I'm feeling a lot better. It's so great Ethan got into Yale. But inside, I was calculating. I started freelancing anonymously from my laptop. At first it was small, editing gigs, tutoring rich kids online, ghostwriting college essays. I used aliases, VPNs, burner emails. It wasn't about revenge. Not yet. It was about control. Independence. I worked late into the night, long after everyone was asleep, fueled by leftover hospital-grade resentment and ginger tea. My aunt had taught me discipline during chemo, structure, mental toughness, how to plan 6 steps ahead. It paid off fast. By the time Ethan moved into his dorm, I had made my first $10,000. And that's when I had my first taste of power. So I built more. I launched a blog under a pseudonym, The Ghost Scholar. It was supposed to be a place for students from low-income families to share hacks, tools, resources to survive elite education. I didn't expect it to go viral, but it did. Turns out, a lot of people felt like I did. Smart, broke, ignored. I got DMs from everywhere. One girl said my guide helped her escape an abusive household by landing a full ride across the country. A guy from a war-torn country emailed me, saying my blog was the reason he passed the SATs. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving. Quietly, invisibly. My parents didn't know any of it. All they knew was I'd finally found some motivation. And of course, they took credit. You know, I think what happened to you was a wake-up call, Mom said once. Really lit a fire under you. Yeah, I said. Something like that. It was during Ethan's first semester finals that the first crack appeared. He called home in tears. He'd flunked 2 classes. He wasn't making friends. He hated his roommate. He wanted to come home. The golden boy was cracking. But my parents wouldn't accept it. They begged, bribed, then berated him. You're not giving up now, not after everything we've sacrificed. Sacrificed? Like my treatment. Like me. That night, while Mom was on the phone begging Ethan to see a therapist at least once, I made my decision. If they'd sacrificed me for him, I was going to show them exactly what they lost. I was 2 years into remission and halfway through a self-taught degree's worth of work when I saw my brother's name show up in my inbox. Well, not his name exactly. It was an application to an ultra-competitive startup incubator I helped build behind the scenes, a project that had become a side empire. We funded student-led businesses with grants and mentorship, but every applicant was anonymous to avoid bias. His pitch was laughable. A social app for campus clubs, basically Facebook groups with a facelift. Sloppy, half-baked, but I recognized the voice in the attached video. The arrogance in how he said, "I don't really do failure." I didn't say a word, but I tagged his application manually. Do not fund. Watch list. Petty? Maybe. But I wasn't done. Ethan's grades kept slipping. By sophomore year, he was on academic probation. My parents still hadn't caught on. Every call home was a carefully filtered version of events. But one night, I caught Mom crying on the phone to my aunt. I listened from the hallway. They said he might lose his scholarship, she whispered. If that happens, I don't know what we'll do. My dad was already dipping into the retirement fund to keep Ethan afloat. They mortgaged the house, sold the boat, postponed repairs at the store. Meanwhile, my aunt, my real family, had just finished her RN to BSN degree. I paid for it in full without telling her, using profits from a scholarship essay business I ran quietly. When she found out, she cried and smacked me with a pillow. Next time, let me at least pretend I can pay you back. You already did, I said, with your life savings. One night, Dad knocked on my door and sat on the edge of my bed. That was new. He hadn't done that since I was a kid. We're proud of how far you've come, Liam, he said. Really? I don't say it enough. I almost laughed in his face. Instead, I asked, is this about Ethan? He hesitated. I know you've got your little projects going. I was wondering if you could help your brother get an internship. Something respectable. That was the moment. The one I dreamed of. The man who once chose college brochures over my chemo was asking me to throw his golden child a lifeline. I smiled, slow and polite. I'll see what I can do. He left looking relieved. What he didn't know was that I'd already helped. 6 months earlier, Ethan had been offered a remote marketing internship with a rising tech company, one I secretly advised. He never responded. Thought it was beneath him. But now that the doors were closing, he'd begged to be let in. Ethan didn't reach out to me directly, of course. That would have required humility, something he'd never developed, even as his academic house of cards collapsed around him. No, he let our parents do the groveling for him. My mom sat me down at the kitchen table like we were back in grade school. Hands folded, fake smile in place. Liam, sweetheart, your brother is struggling. And we know you're doing, well, something now, right? Dad cut in. We were hoping maybe you could, connect him to the right people. I was tempted to ask, you mean the same way you connected me to an early grave when I needed chemo? But I bit down on the bitterness and just nodded slowly. Of course, I said. I'd be happy to. They didn't notice the glint in my eye. They thought I was finally being the bigger person. No, I was being the one in control. I arranged for Ethan to interview at a startup I consulted for. The CEO owed me a favor after I'd fixed a PR crisis that could have sunk them. I gave her one instruction. Give him a chance. But don't make it easy. Let him feel what it's like to earn something. To everyone's surprise, including mine, Ethan landed the gig. My parents were ecstatic. You saved your brother, my mom gushed. I knew you'd come around. But Ethan? He didn't even say thank you. He strutted around like he'd landed the internship on merit. Even started posting motivational quotes about grind culture and manifesting success. Manifesting? I manifested my survival from a hospital bed, you delusional sponge. Still, I played along. I visited his LinkedIn profile weekly, watching him bungle small projects, ignore deadlines, charm his way out of accountability. Classic Ethan. Except this time, I was the one doing the performance reviews. I fed the CEO subtle nudges. Don't fire him. Let him stay just long enough to look good on paper. He needed the illusion of progress. It was cruel, maybe, but poetic. Until he made the mistake of bragging. One night, I came home to find my dad drinking bourbon and grinning. You'll never guess what your brother's planning, he said. He's starting his own company. I nearly dropped the water bottle in my hand. What? Yep. He's convinced he's ready. Says the startup thing isn't challenging enough. Thinks you should partner with him. I felt a vein in my forehead twitch. Partner with him? The same guy who let me rot while he shopped for dorm decorations? That night, Ethan texted me for the first time in over a year. Yo bro, got a crazy idea. Need your brain on it. Let's grab coffee. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just swagger and entitlement. I agreed to the meeting. But this time, I wouldn't just let him trip over his own ego. I was going to lace the whole road with traps and smile while he walked right into them. Ethan picked a fancy cafe for our meeting. One of those places where the lattes cost $12 and the baristas have neck tattoos and master's degrees. He strolled in 10 minutes late, rocking a bomber jacket and too much cologne, and slid into the chair across from me like we were two old friends catching up. Damn, man, he said. You look good. Didn't think cancer survivors had glow-ups like that. I smiled thinly. Didn't think guys who let their brothers die had the balls to joke about it. He launched straight into his pitch, some bland tech platform for networking among students and mentors. Basically LinkedIn, but cooler. It was a mess of half-baked buzzwords and vague promises. I nodded, asked just enough questions to keep him talking, and let him hang himself with his own rope. When he said, you could do the back-end stuff and keep it all running, I knew what this was. He didn't want a partner. He wanted a builder. A ghost. Like I'd always been. You know, he said, leaning back with a cocky grin, you should be grateful. Not everyone gets a second chance like you did. Might as well use it to be part of something that matters. That was it. That was the moment I decided how this would end. Sure, I said. Let's do it. I'll draw up the structure. He fist-bumped me like we were frat bros. But what I drew up wasn't a business plan. It was a mirror, the perfect bait for a man too arrogant to read the fine print. I created a test, a prototype platform, a few fake users, mock investors, and a controlled environment that mimicked a real launch. It looked legit. Felt legit. I gave Ethan just enough access to believe he was the CEO. But behind the scenes, I logged everything. Every skipped deadline. Every plagiarized idea. Every creepy message he sent to the female interns I'd fabricated using AI-generated avatars. He even tried to sell our fake user data to a shady marketing firm. The deal fell through only because I made sure it would. And I recorded everything. Then came demo day. A virtual showcase with real investors, plus a few plants from my network to make it look more legit. Ethan pitched his heart out, not knowing every slide was being pulled from a shared folder I controlled. At the end, I stepped in. Live. Camera on. Name visible. Everyone saw the look on Ethan's face when he realized I'd been there the whole time. I'd like to clarify something, I said calmly. This wasn't a startup. This was a stress test of character. And Ethan? You failed. I shared the screen and flipped through the receipts, the lies, the shady pitches, the unethical attempts to monetize personal data. He turned pale. Then red. Then ghost white. The investors bailed. The room disconnected. The chat exploded. I ended the call with one final line. You were willing to sell a fake company for real money, just like our parents were willing to trade my life for your tuition. I guess it runs in the family. It took less than 48 hours for the explosion to ripple through everything. Ethan's so-called startup imploded. Word spread fast, especially on the investor forums I leaked his behavior to anonymously. One of the shell companies he tried to sell user data to blacklisted him from their entire hiring network. But the real hit came when Yale launched an investigation into his conduct, because, thanks to a conveniently anonymous tip, yours truly, they learned he'd submitted plagiarized code for 2 of his major final projects. He was suspended, not just from classes, from the university entirely. And for the first time in his life, my parents couldn't fix it. They showed up at my place the next day. My dad looked 10 years older, bags under his eyes, suit jacket wrinkled, the first 2 buttons of his shirt undone. My mom clutched a manila folder like it contained the answers to life itself. Liam, she said, her voice trembling. Please, just hear us out. I let them inside. Not because I cared, but because I wanted them to sit in the house they forgot I nearly died in. We didn't know, my dad said, what he was doing, what he became. My mom cut in, tears slipping down her cheeks. I'm sorry. I should have. I should have protected you. I watched them for a long time, and I didn't feel angry. I felt nothing. They weren't monsters. Just small people who'd made monstrous choices. And now they were afraid, because the son they'd thrown away had built a life without them, one they had no access to. They offered me the folder. It was full of legal documents, Ethan's appeal paperwork, debt notices, even a draft apology letter he'd written to the university. He's lost, Mom whispered. He needs help. I placed the folder on the coffee table, untouched. Did he write this? I asked. He did, she said. He means it. He called me a tumor once, I said quietly, staring her dead in the eye. Said I was sucking up all the family's resources. You know what you told him? That he didn't mean it. That he was just stressed about finals. Her face crumpled. I haven't forgotten, I said. But I have moved on. I stood up. You wanted me to be grateful. I am. Thank you for abandoning me. Because if you hadn't, I wouldn't be here. My dad tried one last angle. We still love you. I smiled. No, you love the idea of me. The version that makes you feel good about yourselves. The real me? You don't even know who that is. They left quietly. No threats. No guilt trips. Just silence. It felt like the end of a story. But stories don't just end. They echo. 2 weeks of peace. That's all I got. 2 blissful weeks without a call, a knock, or a guilt-soaked voicemail. I started to believe maybe, just maybe, they'd finally gotten the message. That I was done being the family's sacrificial lamb. That I wasn't going to clean up Ethan's messes anymore. And then he walked into my office. Unannounced. No call. No appointment. Just strolled past the front desk in a wrinkled hoodie and baseball cap, acting like he still owned the world, even though the world had spat him out like rotten meat. Liam, he said, arms spread like we were old college buddies. We gotta talk. I didn't say a word. I just stared. Because suddenly, I was 17 again. Sick. Weak. Lying in bed while this same asshole laughed downstairs with my parents about how my emo phase was ruining Thanksgiving. What the hell are you doing here? I asked, voice flat. He smirked. You ruined me, man. You planned all of it. You pretended to help me, just so you could humiliate me. He wasn't wrong. I gave you a shot, I said. You lit it on fire. He stepped closer. And you think that makes you the hero? No, I said. It makes me alive. His face twitched. You always think you're so clever, he spat. But you're not the only one who can play dirty. That's when he pulled out his phone. I've got emails, he said. Screenshots. From our fake startup. You think investors won't be curious why you created dummy employees? AI-generated girls. What's the spin, huh? Psychological test? Ethical experiment. He was bluffing. But I knew one thing. Ethan never bluffs without trying to bite. And even a weak dog can draw blood if you're not careful. You really want to play this game? I asked. I just want my life back, he said. And you're the one who took it. That line hit harder than I expected. Because no matter how much he'd messed up, no matter how much I hated what he'd become, he still believed that everything he lost was mine to give back. As if I was the villain for surviving. I stood up slowly. You come near my business again, or my home, and I'll show those emails to your former university's ethics board myself. I'll forward them to every job recruiter within 300 miles. I'll make sure your LinkedIn is radioactive for the next 10 years. He looked like he wanted to hit me. Then he did something worse. He smirked again. You think I need a job? He said. You forget, I know things. Family things. Stuff you don't want the world knowing. He left with that threat dangling in the air like a lit fuse. And I realized, he wasn't just trying to rebuild his life. He was willing to burn mine down to do it. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was afraid. Because I was furious. Ethan wasn't bluffing. There was something old, quiet, buried in our family's past like a corpse under the floorboards. Something he'd only heard whispers of growing up. Something I've never said out loud until now. When I was 12, I found out I was adopted. Not in some dramatic movie-style reveal. No long-lost birth certificates or hidden letters. Just a brutal conversation between my mom and my aunt that I overheard through a cracked door. They thought I was asleep. I wasn't. Do you regret it? My aunt asked. And my mom answered. Some days, I wonder if we made a mistake. We were only trying to give him a better life. But now it's like he's draining us. The medical bills, the therapy, the mood swings. She sighed. Sometimes I think maybe we should have let his real mother raise him. That sentence has never left me. They never knew I heard it. And I never brought it up. I buried it the way I was taught to bury everything. Even when I asked, years later, am I adopted? They denied it. Gaslit me. Called me dramatic. But they slipped. Little things. Hospital records. Old photos that suddenly got lost. I pieced it all together by 16. Ethan didn't know the full story. He only knew I wasn't really theirs. And that, in his warped mind, made everything make sense. My cancer? A burden they didn't sign up for. My intelligence? A threat they didn't raise to control. My success? An embarrassment they couldn't take credit for. So when he threatened to go public with it, try to smear me as a fraud, a liar, someone who didn't earn the life I built, I almost laughed. I wasn't afraid of that secret coming out, because I wanted it to. I'd been waiting for the right moment. And Ethan just gave it to me. I wrote a new blog post, under my real name for the first time. Title: The Family That Tried to Delete Me, and What I Built Instead. I told the story. All of it. The adoption I was never allowed to acknowledge. The cancer I survived alone. The brother who was handed everything and still ruined it. The parents who gambled on one son and let the other wither. And I ended it with this. Family isn't who raises you. It's who stands beside you when you have nothing left. I lost mine the day they chose a future over a heartbeat. And I don't want them back. The post exploded. Hundreds of thousands of shares. Comments from people who'd lived through the same betrayal. Strangers calling me brave, fierce, unstoppable. I wasn't just healing. I was burning the old world down. And as the ashes settled, a message popped up in my inbox. From a woman named Rachel. She said she might be my birth mother. Her name was Rachel Linwood. I didn't recognize the name. But when I clicked her profile, I saw it immediately. My nose. My eyes. The same scar above her right brow. The one I thought I'd gotten from falling off my bike as a kid. But hers was identical. Like it had been carved there by the same accident. Or DNA. Her message was short. I saw your post. I think you're mine. That was it. No drama. No tears. Just quiet truth. We agreed to meet in a small town 2 hours away from where I lived. Neutral ground. A sleepy diner off the highway with cracked booths and coffee that tasted like burnt hope. When she walked in, I knew. She didn't cry. I didn't either. We just sat across from each other for a long moment before she finally said, "You look so much like your father." I didn't ask who he was. Not yet. Instead, I asked the question I'd carried since the age of 12. Why did you give me up? She took a long breath. I didn't, she said. And just like that, my world tilted. What do you mean? She pulled a folded letter from her purse. Old. Worn. Creased like it had been opened and closed 1,000 times. I was 17. My parents, your grandparents, were strict, conservative, and ashamed. I was told I could either go to a place for girls like me, or they'd handle it themselves. They handled it. Through private arrangements. Lawyers. Money. Silence. I didn't know who adopted you. They wouldn't tell me. I wasn't allowed to know your name. Just that a good family had taken you. I didn't even get to hold you before they took you away. I swallowed hard. Did you ever try to find me? Every year. On your birthday. She pulled out a worn folder filled with photocopies, petitions, registry forms, search agency receipts. But none had ever gone through. Because my adopted parents had sealed the records. Your post, she said, was the first proof I had that you were alive. And that you'd grown into this. I felt something crack inside me. Not pain. Not grief. Relief. It wasn't that I'd been unwanted. It was that someone had stolen me from the person who did want me. And suddenly, my entire childhood made sense. The way my parents kept me separate from Ethan. The way they treated me like a boarder in my own house. The way they gave up on me the moment I became inconvenient. Because I wasn't a son to them. I was a contract. A prop. A charity case. Rachel reached across the table and took my hand. It was trembling. You don't owe me anything, she said. But I'm here, if you want the truth. All of it. So I asked, who was my father? And that's when she told me. And my blood ran cold. Because the name she said was someone I already knew. His name was Richard Halwell. A family friend. A man I'd known since I was 10. He used to bring over gifts for Ethan and me every Christmas. Called himself Uncle Rick, though we weren't related. Always joked I looked like him. Said things like, you're gonna break hearts one day, just like your old man. I thought it was weird, but I never thought it meant anything. Until Rachel, my birth mother, told me he was my father. They'd been high school sweethearts. He'd left for college when she got pregnant. Her parents forbade her from contacting him again. He never even knew she was carrying his child. Until now. And when I called him, he answered on the first ring. I didn't beat around the bush. I know you're my biological father. Silence. Then, so, you finally found her. I froze. You knew. He exhaled slowly. Not at first. Not for sure. But the older you got, the more I saw myself in you. I suspected. Then why didn't you say anything? Because your parents made it very clear you were theirs. And if I tried to interfere, I'd ruin everything. They said you didn't need another broken family. My voice went cold. They stole me from my mother. Lied to you. Lied to me. Let me die while they saved Ethan's GPA. I know, he said. And I let it happen. That broke me. I met with him anyway. I had to see it, face to face. We met at a park halfway between our cities. No press. No drama. Just the man who gave me life, and then stood by while it was nearly taken from me. He apologized. Sincerely. He said he spent years sending anonymous donations to cancer research. That he read every article I published, knew about my blog, watched me from afar. That he never reached out because he didn't think he deserved to. I asked him one thing. If you could go back, would you fight for me? He didn't hesitate. In a heartbeat. That's when I realized something. I had been surrounded by people who had failed me. Parents who discarded me. A brother who tried to blackmail me. A system that kept me from the people who actually wanted me. And somehow, I'd still won. Not because I got revenge, but because I built a life without them. I still talk to Rachel. We meet for lunch sometimes. I'm learning who she is, slowly, without pressure. Richard is in the background for now, but I don't hate him. Not anymore. My adoptive parents? I sent them one final message. You once said I was a burden. That Ethan was the future. So live with him. Love him. Let him be your legacy. Because I'm not coming home. I never belonged there. And now, I finally don't have to pretend I did. I haven't heard from them since. And I hope I never do.